Hey guys, Pizza coming at you from the heavens, and welcome to my Halloween series for 2025. Woo! So I've got just a couple of things in store for this week, so make sure you stick around and you tickle that subscribe button if you want to see some more. But today I'm doing something completely brand new, which is I'm going to be reading some paranormal scary stories from Reddit just to get us in a spooky mood, and then we're going to move into talking about my personal experiences. Just a little disclaimer, this is going to be talking about, ghost-like experiences, paranormal experiences and all that sort of stuff. If you don't believe in that stuff, that is completely fine. I do. That's just my personal thoughts and feelings and opinion. So if it's not for you, that's fine, that's cool too. But if you want to hang around just to hear some spooky stuff, you're more than welcome to. I haven't saved anything in typical Jess fashion, unorganized as always, so I'm just looking at some Reddit stories that popped up when I look up paranormal stories. So, because I'm kind of into the ghosty stuff at the moment, so let's do this together. So the first story is from the subreddit Paranormal, and it's titled, "I have an insane paranormal story I've held on to for over 30 years and it has many witnesses." Let's get to it. For some reason, I never thought about posting my story here. I've posted it on YouTube comments before, and I think I've even talked about it on my YouTube show before. I'm related to paranormal. I interview families with missing children, family members, to help get the word out and bring them home. Oh, that's very nice. A nice human being here and getting haunted by a ghostie. I'm a very normal, simple 41-year-old guy with zero history of any mental illness apart from a little bit of anxiety. No bad medical history, drug use, etc. Drank in my teens and 20s when I would go out to bars and stuff, but never had any bad habits or anything like that. Anyway, it started when I was 5 or 6, which would have been 1988 to 1989. I would see what I called the bloody man walking up and down the stairs in my house. I can't remember his face, not sure if it's because I never looked at it or he didn't have one. I just remember it would never be middle of the night, but more like bedtime, that this would always happen. I don't know what I've got in my eyeball, but my eyeball absolutely hates me. Also low-key using a red light because I am sunburnt. No surprises there. He had a bandage on his head that was bloody and a hospital gown. Ugh. I remember having a feeling that I knew this wasn't right, but I wasn't scared. Not sure if the lack of fear was due to being told not to be scared somehow, or if I was so young I didn't know to be scared. Anyway, this person I would come to learn later in life was my uncle. He had been beaten in the head with a baseball bat, came home, brain swelled in his sleep, and was taken to hospital by the family in the morning, where he died several days later. I'm sorry to hear. This was August of 1982. I was born in December of 1983. There was much more to the story, both his life and that night itself, but I'll hold off on that for now. I saw the bloody man somewhere in the range of 15 to maybe 30 times. Then my mum and I moved out of there to get our own place. This was my grandfather's house, and I was gone for 5 years. Around 12 to 13 years old, I moved back to that house. While I never saw the bloody man again, it was far from the last paranormal encounter I would have in that house. After being back around 5 to 6 months or so, one day I was showing my little sister how to play a Sonic the Hedgehog game. Legend. And as I'm explaining it to her, as clear as day, a female voice says her name. Woo! Woo! My sister instantly got up and went to the door and said, "Yeah, Ma!" And I was frozen solid in fear. This was for 2 reasons. The first was I knew for a fact that wasn't my mum's voice. That said my sister's name. It was my grandmother's, who had been dead for 10 years. The second thing I knew that my little sister didn't seem to realise was the voice had not come from downstairs. It came from right at our feet, by the foot of the bed. I just sat there frozen in fear while my sister yelled for my mum, who of course said that she had been washing dishes and never called for her. My sister then sulked while walking back to the bed. "What's the matter?" I asked her. She said, "I hate those stupid stairs. The bloody man is scary." She's seen them too. Oh, seen him too? So I started asking her who had told her about the bloody man. Was it any of my friends, etc, etc. She wasn't shocked that I knew who the bloody man was and was crying for me to believe her that she really sees him, and none of my friends had spilled the secret to her. She was about 5 at this time, same age I used to see him. The next part of the story involves all my friends. Every sleepover after hearing my grandmother's voice, my bedroom door started shaking, thinking it might be my stepfather. We would open it as it was shaking and no one would be standing there. Upon realising this, the shaking would terrify us, so every sleepover for about a year the door would shake and these horrible claw-like scratching sounds would go down the door. My friends and I would fight to go hide in the corner on the bed while it would happen. So if you're keeping count, that's me and my sister who both saw the bloody man and heard the female voice, and 3 of my friends who witnessed the shaking and clawing at the door. 5 people, but believe it or not, the last part of the story gets even crazier. Buckle up, people! We sold the house and moved a couple of cities over about a year later. One thing I forgot to mention is the reason why I moved back at 12-13 is my grandfather had a bunch of mini strokes and was in a wheelchair, so my mum moved back in to take care of him. Well, after we moved away, I told my mum it surprised me that she sold her childhood house, and she talked about all the bad memories she had there that had replaced the good. And then she said, plus, Grampy started creeping me out towards the end. It turns out that he started telling her, your brother's still here, every night, up down those goddamn stairs, up and down, up and down. He saw the bloody man too. His son. Oh, it was your uncle the entire time. Oh. But that's not the craziest part. About 7-8 years after selling the house, the guy that bought it saw my uncle in a gym and beelined it towards him, demanding to know what the hell is in that house. He, his wife, and 2 of his kids kept seeing uncle around the house. I made it a point to walk by the house to try to catch someone coming out once. I heard the gym story, and one day I caught the youngest son leaving. I introduced myself and asked him what they saw, and he said he was too young at the time, but his mum, dad and 2 brothers would always see my uncle behind them in mirrors in the house. They got rid of the mirrors and it stopped, he said. I don't quite understand that part because mirrors had nothing to do with it for me, but still, that's 3 people in my family, 3 friends, and 4 people of a different family that essentially saw the same thing or heard it. I'd give anything to learn exactly what the heck went on in that house for all those years. Anyways, that's my story. Wow, that is insane. I'll see if he's done any updates. So, by the looks of it, they're concluding that there's demons in the house. Low-key scary. But I feel like demons try to do more harm than try to like just taunt. I feel like taunting is just an angry spirit, but that's just my personal belief anyway. Good thing you left the house, because sometimes like the paranormal can make people sick and all that sort of stuff. So, you know, that's a quite interesting story, and the fact that multiple people experienced it. And normally when things like, for example, they made that connection with the uncle, and normally when you move away from a home with that such a strong connection with that, normally the spirit moves on, or you hope the spirit would move on. For some reason he stuck around, so there must be something to do with the house that he's either trapped or can't pass on, or is just refusing to pass on. So there's a lot of things there that I find interesting, and also how young they were when they first started seeing it. Like, kids tell stories all the time, but to carry on with it into your adulthood is next level, honestly. But yeah, thanks for sharing your story with us, dude. This next story comes from the subreddit Ask Reddit, which is, what is your best ghost paranormal experience story? When I was a kid, my favorite uncle was the youngest in the family. He was my hero. He had just finished high school and I was like 10 or 11. We would go and visit spring break, and over the course of the summer I always looked forward to seeing the guy. We listened to records and tapes, and he introduced me to bands like The Cult, INXS, The Doors, Bowie and Stevie Ray Vaughan. Did I say that right? I hope I did. As I entered my teenage years, my life started and my friends became the centre of my universe, and those spring break and summer visits eventually stopped happening. Eventually I graduated high school, and around the same time my uncle started a family. A few years out of my high school, my mum called me up to let me know my uncle had passed away. I hadn't seen him in a few years, and when I asked what happened, the only reply I could get was he was sick. It wasn't until years later I found out that he had taken his own life. He didn't leave a note or anything, but the general consensus was that he learned he didn't have long to live and took the easy way out. I hate it when people say that, but it is a shame, and it's unfortunately very common that when people are diagnosed with a terminal illness, they just want to drop and go, honestly. Here's where things get interesting for me. Shortly after the funeral, I started having dreams. I'm a pretty lucid dreamer, not in the sense that I can decide what I want to happen in a dream, but I can recall my dreams in vivid detail. Maybe there's another word for that, I don't know. Anyways, I started having dreams about my uncle. Sometimes we were just sitting in his room from when I was a kid, listening to music and making jokes. Over time, they became very strange. One dream I had, we were in a movie theatre sitting really close to the screen, and we were eating popcorn. The screen was playing something, but I couldn't distinguish what it was. And my uncle was talking, but I could not figure out what he was trying to say. Another was the two of us in the hallway and the doors were locked. The most troubling dream I had about the guy, which was also the most reoccurring, is when I would find him sitting at a rope bridge. He would stare at this bridge and get up and try to walk across it, but there's snakes that would strike at him when he tried to cross. A snake would snip at him and he'll go back to where he was sitting and just look at me, then look at the bridge. So I'll walk onto this bridge and look across, and every few feet is a very angry snake. All the way across, I grabbed my uncle's hand and took him out on the bridge, and he would be apprehensive because of the snakes. So I stood in front of him and kind of hopped up and down on the bridge. The momentum, or whatever you call it, from me bouncing on the rickety old bridge made the snakes angry, but if you bounce enough on it, the snakes would eventually teeter over the side. It was very strange, eureka kind of dream. So my uncle would step out onto the bridge, walk a few feet, bounce the bridge so the snakes will fall off. The dream will always end with my uncle making it across the bridge, and me getting this feeling of reluctance to follow him across. Then I will wake up with this overwhelming feeling of sadness. Well, you're still mourning, dude. Like, you gotta let yourself mourn, you know? These dreams happened for almost 20 years. Always the same. Me and my uncle shooting the shite, or me helping him solve a puzzle of some sort. The snake and rope bridge was the most common. Never told a soul in my family about what my uncle and I were up to. I always thought it would be upsetting. Like he wasn't at rest. Like he was in the purgatory or something. Maybe he was. I eventually just came to accept that my uncle was haunting me, and for the most part, I didn't mind. My grandmother died a few years ago, nothing tragic. She caught pneumonia and never really recovered from it. One night she went to sleep and never woke up. We celebrated her life, hugged and healed the way families do when death comes to visit. Since my grandmother's funeral, I haven't had a single dream about my uncle. Not one. I think that was the confirmation I needed, that there was something out there for us after we die. Or maybe my grandmother passing away was the catharsis I needed to let my uncle go. I look back on it now, and I like to think that my uncle was just lost. He was lost in life, and that carried on in death. I also think my grandmother, on her way to the sweet hereafter, found her baby boy, picked him up, dusted him off, and brought him home. Oh, that's really sweet. Even the first comment is like, that's really beautiful, thank you for sharing. This is like one thing that's weird. It's another theory, like dreams, like people can interfere with dreams and all that sort of stuff. That's another huge theory or conspiracy around this sort of stuff. And to think that there were a lot of strong connections with this story, like someone passing away that you were really close to, but you somewhat drifted apart, and then now, you know, they've passed, they're wanting to spend their time with you. So it's just like, it's quite interesting to hear about that. Well, that's a really sweet story. It's always a shame to hear about, you know, things like suicide. It's sad, and it's affected a lot of people, including myself. And it's just, you never think about where those people end up in the afterlife. Like, of course they end up finding peace and then they'll pass, move on. However, you know, sometimes because it's not their time to go, they've made that decision to go themselves. Sometimes I wonder if they do feel lost, before they go. Now that's a really lovely story. I really do appreciate that. So this will be the last one I'll read, and this comes from the subreddit Ask Reddit. And it is titled, "What is the creepiest and most unexplainable paranormal experience you've ever had?" So there's actually a couple of mini ones here. So let's just read a couple of them. We'll read a handful of them. So the first one is the True Lord Humongous. So not creepy, but kind of cool. My mother split and transplanted a rose bush from my grandfather's farm about 40 years ago. It took but never bloomed. At that point, she only kept it because it grew into the fence nicely and kept us kids from climbing it. My grandfather died about 5 years after she transplanted it, and that spring it bloomed red roses. A few years after that, my grandmother died, and the spring after it bloomed white roses. These are the only 2 years it has ever bloomed. That's really cool. I just think that's cool. Yeah, cool. Not much to say on it. There isn't too much there, but like, you know, just the fact that it's just not bloomed, you know, just the fact that it's bloomed in those very convenient times. Like, you know, the first time, coincidence, you know what I mean? But when it's twice, it's like something's happening there. That's quite interesting. Next one says from Fall Race. My mother's favourite animal was the hummingbird. Last year, shortly after she passed away, a hummingbird came right up and looked at me as I was on my way to my car to go to work. Like a foot away, it just checked me out for a while and flew off to do hummingbird things. Once I got to my car, I broke down. I just sat there in the driver's seat and cried. I like to think my mum was somehow checking up on me. I know it's silly, but for that moment, I felt like she wasn't gone and she was still there watching over me. That's quite beautiful too. I have that theory, but with butterflies and moths. So moths, I feel like, hang around a lot in areas where there's been like that it senses death, whether if that's just mental, physical, you know, etc. Because, you know, I personally believe that humans can lose themselves in different ways, and it doesn't have to be just death. It could be mentally, physically. And butterflies, I feel like, are people checking up on me, and crows as well. So in Australia we're supposed to have ravens, but we just call them crows, honestly. I believe in that. I do believe that I reckon that was definitely someone, you know, most likely her mother, someone checking in on her. This one's from Rohezer. When I was around 12, my mother had to go out of town for a bit and she left me home alone for a few days. We lived close to the relatives, so it wasn't a big deal back then. She refused to give me a mobile phone because she figured she could just call me on the landline if anything came up. She told me the date when she'll be back, and that was that. Date arrives and I hear my mum knocking on the door downstairs calling my name. My dog, who loved her, got excited when she heard her voice and ran down ahead to greet her. She got to the door and freaked the hell out and ran back upstairs to me. I refused to go down and open the door. The phone started ringing and the knocking stopped. I pick up the phone and hear my mum say, "Hey, I'm sorry, I had to stay one more day here. I'll head home tomorrow." Something pretended to be my mum. Didn't fool the dog. That is... yeah. And then the first comment is, I wonder what would have happened if you opened the door. Well, we probably wouldn't hear the story. But that's creepy. And this is why I believe animals can sense these kind of things. And obviously animals can sense who their owners are. Like they sense people they know. But even if it was some random that was just at the door knocking, 9 times out of 10 a dog will still excitedly be at the door, either barking at the door, being like, someone's here, or, you know, just excited because there's a person there to give them love, right? But for a dog to cower and move away, that's next level something else. My cat, Lucky, if you are new here, I had a cat called Lucky. He passed away last year, unfortunately, quite suddenly. He would often be with me, and when I would sense things, he would sense them too, and he would look at me in a certain way that he looked scared. This is from a deleted page. I was a rookie cop when my brother committed suicide. I hate that saying. It's just passed away from suicide, please. Saying committed, like, look, Say it however you want. Saying committed suicide to me just makes it sound like it's a really bad thing. It is a really bad thing, don't get me wrong, but you also don't want that person to feel like they're being charged. I'd rather just say pass from suicide. That's just my personal rant. Sorry. He was one of my older siblings, but we were very close. He died in another state, and I had a lot of guilt then about not recognizing the signs. Never feel guilty. And I'm just going to say this right now. Never feel guilty for not noticing the signs or symptoms. People who are in that state of mind have already made that decision before they've shown the signs and symptoms, so never feel bad. His remains were in bad shape by the time he was discovered, so it was a closed coffin service. About a week after he died, I was back at work one night and my partner and I see a pimp pistol whipping one of his girls. I jump out and the pimp sees me and the foot chase was on. I was running after him, gun in hand, and he cuts through a narrow corridor under a building that leads into a courtyard in the middle. Right before I reach the courtyard, I hear, "It's okay," in my dead brother's voice. I hit the courtyard and the guy is against the side pointing a gun at my head and squeezes the trigger twice. I froze for a millisecond and then started beating him in the head with my revolver. Till this day, I don't know why I didn't just shoot him. Coughing and walking back to the street and find my partner. I tell my partner about him squeezing the trigger, but not the voice I heard. We unloaded the gun, .32 revolver, right there, and 2 bullets have strike marks on them. I take the gun to the lab for testing, tell the tech the story. He puts the 2 bullets with strike marks back in and shoots into the test tank. Both bullets fired. That is crazy. That is so crazy. I truly believe his brother saved him. Honestly. Sometimes the paranormal can do crazy things, man. And it could be dangerous or it can be extremely protective. I truly think his brother protected him that night. That is insane. Alright, last story. This is from Charlie Boomhauser. We used to live in a battered women's and children's shelter when I was young. Because my father was looking for us, ugly divorce, Alabama gave him custody, Mum took us to WA. I don't know where that is. One night I looked in the mirror and saw a hairy demon looking back at me. I screamed and cried and ran to get my mum, who assured me it was a normal mirror. But that night, a kind looking man that I can only describe as a ghost appeared at the end of my bed. He was there all night but gone when I woke up in the morning. Then the next night and the next night. He was there every night for 4 months. We never talked. He never moved, just stood guard. Then one night, he woke me up from my sleep, and I'll never forget how surprised I was because I'd never seen him move or talk. He said, "He's coming, get out now." So we packed up the car and left to a hotel for the night. The next morning we went back to find out someone had broken in and gone room to room looking for someone. I never saw him again after that. Wow. Can I just say wow? Could have been a spirit guardian of some sort. Something told them, whether if it was intuition or it was this ghost that was talking to the girl. I think that's awesome because, again, I feel like there are ghosts that have really good intentions and then there's ghosts that have really poor intentions. And, you know, the ones with good intentions just want to make sure that their loved ones are safe and are able to provide that extra eye that we don't have. And the ones with poor intentions just want to make sure they get revenge on people that did them wrong in life, and they're just so angry. I thought I'd read some of those and see what other people have experienced in their lifetimes, because what everyone experiences can be so different from one another. So I thought I'll finish off with talking about some of my experiences in my lifetime. Just gonna say a note that I've written down. Note, these are my beliefs. I understand there are skeptics and people who may think I'm completely crazy for believing what I believe. If you don't agree with me, that's cool. If you do, that's cooler. Just remember, be kind to one another. Thank you, and come again. I've always felt some connection to the afterlife or the other side, whatever it's called. And I've always believed that there is something on the other side once someone passes away. This started when I was a baby. Obviously, I don't remember this, so my mum would share that when Emily and I, again, people who are new, Emily's my twin sister. When Emily and I were babies, we would often look aside or like look away from people. So you know how babies often just look at people and just, make sure that, like, put their sole focus on the people. And the two sole people that they would often put their full focus on would be their parents. So parents, guardians, or whoever's looking after them, like the people that I spend most of the time with, they'll tend to look their way most. One time my mum was changing can't remember off the top of my head. I should have asked her before she left for work this morning, whether it was me or my sister, but she always just referred to it as you guys, so I'm assuming it happened on one or more occasions that we would, as she was changing us, that we would actually adjust our gaze away from her and to behind her and giggle all the time. And she said that when we were babies, my pop passed away when we were 2 years old. And my nan passed away when we were 4 months old, I believe. And so I never really got to meet these people. When my mum used to change my sister and I, my pop used to actually stand behind her and pull faces at Emily and I, and, will make us laugh. And mum said that after he passed away, these would often happen, and she couldn't believe that was happening. So she believed that Emily and I were actually still actively seeing Pop behind her while she was changing us, which is pretty cool. Fast forward a couple of years, so we were about like four or 5 years old, and my sister and I used to share a bedroom. We'll have 2 single beds in that room, and we'll share that room. One time, my sister fully freaked out, and she had the bed that was closest to the window. I had it closest to the other wall, and Emily was having a meltdown, screaming for mum, saying that there's a man in the room. Obviously, protective parents get up, come into the room and saying, she's having a full-blown meltdown, saying there's a man in the room. They're checking the curtains, make sure there's no one hiding behind the curtains, checking under the beds, making sure no one's under the beds. And apparently, I rolled over and I said word for word, it's probably Pop again. That was weird. My mum was like, how many times have you seen him? She fully believed that Emily and I were consistently seeing Pop as we were babies, and he was coming in to check on us to make sure we were okay. Next one was is about our dog Muttley. So we had a German Shepherd while growing up. My parents got a German Shepherd because my mum was struggling to hold a pregnancy, and so it eventually got to the point where the doctor actually told my mum it might be dangerous for her to actually hold a pregnancy. So her and dad did decide at one point, maybe we should just start off with not worrying about it and see where it goes. They discovered Muttley, which was a beautiful German Shepherd cross border collie, and they adopted him from a pet store and took him home, and that was pretty much their child. Until mum fell pregnant with my sister and I. He unfortunately passed away when my sister and I were 7 years old. So, we grew up with this dog, and I think he passed away at a time where we were still figuring out what grief was and understanding that once someone is gone, they're gone, kind of thing. So, but for several years after that, I would often see him still walking around the house, and I just remember that so vividly, being like, Muttley's here. Like, no, he's here. Like, I see him here. Like, why would you say he's died when he's still here? And the last place I saw him was probably when we moved back to South Australia in our first house here, and I just saw the tail of him just entering the hallway, and I was like, bruh. So that was cool. Fast forward a couple more years, the Old Adelaide Jail. So if you guys are from Australia or South Australia, even better, you would know that we have an Old Adelaide Jail that is open for people to come and have a look what it's like in there. And on top of that, they do ghost tours too. I've low-key still want to do the ghost tour, but I just haven't found the time to do it yet. Hopefully soon though. But we went there on a school camp once, and there was an old friend I had called Genevieve. So shout out to Genevieve if you're watching this. I hope you're doing well. And we were wandering around, and we were both obsessed with ghosts. Like, we wanted to find something that was paranormal to talk about to everyone else. Like, we didn't want to make something up. We actually genuinely were looking for something to tell someone. We spent probably about an hour or two at this place to eventually get like 40 kids in around and around just to, have a scope of everything. So, and we were pretty devastated because we didn't find anything. And as we were walking out, we walked past this hallway, and then we heard jingling keys, and we looked at each other, and we're like, is this the thing? Is this the thing? And so what happened was we ended up just slowly walking down the hallway, and we were just looking in every cell, being like, is there someone in there? Is there someone in there? Like, we never heard a door open. We never heard a door close. We just heard the jingling. And then we reached the other end of the hallway, which was also outside, and we looked around. No one's there. And we were like, this was the thing! And it was so cool. It was so cool. So yeah, that was another one that I thought I'd chuck in there just as a cool experience. That was during the day too, which was quite weird. Next one, Lucky. So when Lucky passed away, I still saw him in random places here and there. But I think he moved on relatively quickly because his death was quite sudden. I don't want to go into too much detail, but he meant a lot to our family, and we found him where we were having a hard time with some health problems that arose in our family, and we were kind of feeling pretty devastated. We just made a big change to change schools because of bullying and harassment, and so it was a pretty sad time for us, and it was the start of lots of new beginnings, whether they were positive or negative. And he just rocked up out of nowhere. It was only for probably, I'd say, about a month or two. I still saw him around the house occasionally. Occasionally I feel him next to me while I'm sleeping, which is where he would typically sleep. But I think he's moved on now because I haven't felt that in a little while. So, but he would always be there when there's something wrong. But again, like I said, he would see things too, and he would react, and he was a very, very reactful cat. Second to last thing I'm going to touch on is my grandma. So I have made, I don't know if I made an announcement on YouTube yet, but because it was such a messy time, but while I was completing my final placement I think it was about 6 weeks ago now, this has happened. My grandmother suddenly passed away. I just finished some meetings at placement, and I got a phone call from mum being like, I need you to come home ASAP. Grandma's been rushed to the hospital. You know the drill. So we got home. We all went up in one car, and we got there. She was in the resuscitation ward, which, as we all know, it's not a good ward to be in. Second time she's been in there the last couple of years, and we were sitting there waiting in the family room, and then when the whole family got there, I had the gut feeling today's the day. Yes, she was old. Yes, she was quite poorly. But I tell you what, this woman, I swear, was living out of spite. The amount of times she's been rushed to hospital, resuscitated, all that jazz. And she still just lived. She could have died in so many other ways. And, I don't know what she was taking, but I'll have some of that. But, yeah, just the moment that the whole family was there, which her ultimate dream and wish was to have a whole family in one room with her. And so when everyone was getting there, I was like, yeah, no, it's going to happen today. It's going to happen today. When she became conscious and responsive to people, they started letting us see her and have a talk with her. All of us managed to have a conversation with her. For some reason, she remembered my place of work. It says, "You're still working there?" So my sister and I were like, "Yeah." And she's like, "Good." And I'm like, okay. Of all things you can remember right now, that's what you remember. And that was actually quite funny to us because when she was had her last big hospital to stay, we had to make the decision to put her in a nursing home because her cognitive health was far too low to trust her to live on her own. So the fact that she remembered that, we're like, okay. And then I said to Emily afterwards, I was like, I think this is it. I'll forever cherish that moment and privilege that we had to actually have a conversation with her before she passed, because not many families have that. And it was such a beautiful way to say goodbye. And shortly after, she got moved into a different room and she was on high flow oxygen because she had just been almost resuscitated. She almost arrested. That's what we got told. They told us that she was ready, and all of our family just kind of piled into that room. There was 20 of us. There was so many of us, and we all just stood there. And I've never personally sat in a room viewing a dead person before in my life, so I've never felt it. But the moment I walked in that room and I just saw her, I saw her, but it wasn't her, and I just felt like she was an empty vessel. And I never sensed that before ever in my life, so I thought it was a weird feeling. But the more I looked at her, the more I was like, that's not her. And it took one of my cousin's partners to say, I don't think she's actually breathing. There was no death rattle, there was no gargle, there was no nothing. So my mum went up and checked, she went up and checked, so they were like, we'll grab a nurse. Nurse came and checked, she's like, I'm going to grab the doctor, and then we all just broke down. It was quite an emotional moment, and then yeah, doctor came in, called the time of death. But I think personally, she let go knowing that her whole family was there with her in that moment. And I think she finally got her wish, so she let go. So that was a very different and new experience for not only just me, but Emily as well. And, you know, we never really experienced anything like that. So it was weird to sense that spirit was no longer there. The last thing is, we believe our house is haunted. Just to finish it on a subtle note. So, my sister and I, we've been living in this house for a couple of years now, and occasionally, and I mean occasionally, it was very rarely does this happen. We'll hear voices in the house, and it will trick us. So sometimes, you know, and it often happens in bathrooms as well. That's one thing that we find is weird. And I will be in the bathroom and I'll hear mumbling, like someone's talking to me through the door, and I would angrily say, "I'll be out in a minute! Just wash my hair! Let me wash my hair!" And I'll come out and I'll go up to my sister and be like, "Bro, why did you want to use the bathroom so bad? Plus, if you just need to go to the toilet, like, we've got shower curtains and lots of stuff, I don't care. Like, if you gotta go, right?" So, and she's like, "I've been here the whole time." And I'm like, "Great." I said, "So was it mum?" Yeah, I was like, because I couldn't identify who it was with how loud the shower was. And she's like, "No, they left like just after you got in to go to Bunnings." And I'm like, "Okay." And then there was a moment where I think my parents had gone away on holiday, and Emily was taking a shower in my parents' ensuite, and she came out, and I was on my PC, you know, editing videos as I typically do, and she comes in and she's just there like, "Do you want to shower now?" And I'm like, "I already showered this morning." Like, it was like midday. I was like, "I already showered. Like, why do I want to shower again?" She's like, "Didn't you just ask me if I was almost done?" And I was like, "No." And she's like, "I heard you clear as day," or someone, you know, like say, "Are you almost done?" And I was like, "That wasn't me. That wasn't me." And so yeah, that was weird. There is a woman of some sort, because I thought it was my mum or my sister, and my sister thought it was me. So I believe that there is a woman stuck here. Oh yeah, context. House is from the 1800s, by the way. And then this side of the house is the original house. So like my room, original part of the house. Like, these are thick stone walls around my room. So yeah, that's a little fun fact there. Sensing someone watching me. Quite often, I sense people watching. It feels a bit uncomfortable, especially when you're in the shower, but I know that they don't mean any harm in here. My camera has human detection on, so it detects people's faces and it focuses in on those faces, which is pretty cool, right? Because it is a vlogging camera, so, you know, it's one of its finer details. But I remember one time, I think I was doing an unboxing of some sort, and I was sitting here and I look over, and because it can detect multiple people at the same time, I think I was about here, and then all of a sudden another box kind of appeared here. And I kind of looked over and I was like, that was so weird. Like, that kind of freaked me out a little bit. I was like, okay, it's not just me. Devices are sensing it now. And the moment I brought up my phone, again in typical fashion, I know, to take a picture of that second box appearing or video, it disappeared and it didn't come back. I was like, great. So, yeah, quite interesting, that one. Yeah, so those are some of my stories. If you got any stories that you like to share, put them down below. If there are enough stories down below, I'll probably start my own subreddit and have you guys share some there that I can talk about on here. So yeah, if you guys like this video, make sure you give me a thumbs up. Make sure you subscribe as well so you can see the rest of the videos I'm going to put up this week and future videos as well. And while you're at the subscribe button, make sure you tickle the notification bell. And thank you guys for watching, and I'll see you guys in the next video. Pizza Laws signing out.